All right, we will now transition into the open mic portion of the evening. You will be given an opportunity to approach one of the two audience microphones located at the ends of each aisle and address a question to either one or both of the debaters. All are welcome to participate in the open mic session, provided that you do so with the knowledge that tonight's debate and open mic portion is being videotaped. If both debaters give their consent, a video of this evening, including the open mic, may appear on YouTube. If you participate in the open mic, you are granting Stevenson High School permission to include your contribution in the video.
Also, the question you ask must actually contain a question. Please don't ask more than one question because we want to give as many people as possible the opportunity to participate. You will be given up to 1 minute to ask your question, so we encourage that you approach the microphone prepared. The debater to whom you address the question may respond for up to 1 minute. The other debater will be given the option to respond to the question as well. Any portion of the minute the debater does not use will be banked for use on answers to future questions.
All right, so beginning now, anybody who wishes can approach one of the microphones with their question, and we'll see where it goes.
Hi.
Hi. This question is for Professor Hans. I was wondering if you were aware of the fact you used ClimateGate to try and blow holes in the science of global warming, and I was wondering if you were aware that 8 committees have exonerated the people involved in ClimateGate, and that the information that was at what's that organization for ClimateGate? CRU was given to Richard Mueller, and this summer he changed from denying climate to affirming climate global warming.
You're asking kind of a couple-part question, but let me just go with this. First of all, they were given no wrongdoing in the manipulation of the science portion of that. Okay. The other parts, the addressing of the suppressing of information, it's easy to get a consensus if you suppress the other side. Okay, and that's what the evidence was showing. Now, that was not a charge that was made. That was quite amazing. That was not the charge that was made. It's not about the, I'm not trying to poke holes in the science of it. That's easy enough to do. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to poke holes in the idea that this is some kind of consensus of scientists. It's not. It's a very political game. Consensus is not a scientific term. Consensus is a political term. If we had consensus, the sun would still be going around the earth. If that's how we did science.
Do I get a response?
Yeah. Sure.
Consensus. The best thing that ever happened to the naysayers of climate change was that they were able to take the entire thing and put it in the political arena. You're right. 4 or 5 different committees have gone through all the ClimateGate stuff. It's all stood its ground. People are coming over to the climate change side because the North Pole is melting. Nobody can deny that. The temperatures are rising. Nobody can deny that. You have some bizarre sites from Angelica or wherever. But the temperature's rising. Mr. Haan just showed you a thing. He says, which is cheaper, coal by 3 cents a kilowatt hour over wind? And I just tried to show you in just a very brief period of time that if you take that if you give money to the wind industry, we can save 3 cents per mile per electric car by not exporting U.S. cash for foreign oil. That's $4,500 per car, and they can't sell volts. That's my new duty, is to try to help sell electric cars. We are sitting on an economic gold mine. He's trying to explain to you that coal is the cheapest electricity for third world countries. Sure, if you have a power plant, power lines, transformers, wire to run everywhere, somebody to collect the electricity bills, or radical thought. Here's how we explore for renewable energies. You guys ready? This costs so much money. Oil, drill, drill. Coal mines, dig, 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 dig. Solar energy. is so good. Cheap, the sun gets up every day.
You're saying to the third world that they can only use solar energy. You're saying to the third world they cannot have electricity.
Stop right there.
They have coal.
Stop
They
right
have
there.
oil.
But they don't think about it, ladies and gentlemen. You're critical minds.
How many
Steam
transit
plant,
systems can
iron,
run?
railroad construction, or a 40-pound panel here, a battery here, U.S. made, exporting energy for a change. And now they have electricity, LED lights, they have refrigeration that's going to help them have drugs. And I tell you what, folks, you can't compare coal energy to costs to photovoltaic systems. Photovoltaics are doing great things in spite of being ignored by the distributed energy companies that want to maintain that grasp on centralized energy. Because as long as they can send you a bill, they get money back. The minute you start getting electricity off your rooftop, I didn't show you, can I show one slide? And then we'll go forward. Here we go. Okay, I presented at the electric car meeting just a day ago. If I want to put a photovoltaic panel on my house to drive my car, it would take $12,000 in today's dollars to put electric panels on my rooftop. I can get a $4,000 federal subsidy, $3,000 state subsidy. My cost is $5,000. If I do that instead of buying an electric car or a gas car, my $5,000 cost, if I divide it by the cost of driving a gas car, which is 16 cents per mile, in 2 years, in 1 month, I will have paid off the electric panels on my rooftop, and I'm going to be able to drive my electric car. This is so exciting, I'm going to just stress this out. I can drive my electric car 200,000 miles for free. The oil companies don't want us to do that.
Mr. Wilms, I first have like a question and a follow-up. So by photovoltaic, do you mean solar panels?
Solar panels,
Okay, then based on solar panels, my family actually built a factory in India and we decided to use solar panels.
yes.
And it just didn't work out that well because the manufacturer thing said it would gain this much energy from the solar panel, but it just doesn't meet that standard, just because of clouds, conditions, and everything. So in the end, we decided to use coal. And but I'm just telling you this. So it's not always very true what they say because they can advertise the top conditions. So
Could you hit my file for a minute? Just show you something.
I'll respond real quickly to that. I was up at Helios, which is a solar panel manufacturer in the United States, actually in Milwaukee. They are an American manufacturer that has a 25-year warranty on the panel and the inverter on the back. American quality of manufacture tops the world. The inverter company is the same company that has the inverters on the space station. Good company, American. We can build them here, we can export them, we can be an exporter of energy instead of an importer. Now, back to coal. Coal is so expensive to run, and if you've looked at the wires in India, you can see that it's a disaster waiting to happen because it's so confused. And what we can do is we can put panels on everyone's rooftops, and they can have their own power with much less infrastructure. It's the infrastructure that costs a lot.
Wow. Okay, guys, here it is. These are the numbers. This is the levelized cost of a new generation. This is new construction. He says, well, you can't put an oil thing. Well, guys, you just can't have a windmill and just have it, like, sit there. Or natural gas. If you're going to build a new plant, natural gas is your best deal. In a cent per kilowatt over the lifetime of the plant. Hydro, conventional coal, onshore wind. Not too bad. Geothermal, advanced nuclear, solar panels. Guys, how many factories do you know of that are run by solar panels? How many solar panels are going to have our factories? Yes, if we want to keep Africa and India poor, let's give them all solar panels. Because they're not going to run a transport system off solar panels. They're not going to sit there and run a factory off of wind power. You need to have the cheapest electricity available, and that is coal, or in this case, if you're going to do a whole new generation, natural gas.
Okay, the next question from the
Sure.
Actually, I think I'm going to break the one-question rule and first address the first one to truth seekers and ask, is there any way you could put these PowerPoints online?
We're going to.
Okay, awesome.
We're going to, right? Give it to you.
Perfect, because all data is not created equal, and it would be good if everybody could see where everything's coming from. Second question, and I say this with all due respect to Mr. Haan, I think you're a conspiracy theorist. And I'm not sure if you're going to take offense to that, because I think you might acknowledge it. It's just because your hypothesis, your whole premise is based upon the fact that it requires a massive conspiracy from the scientific community. You say there's no consensus in the scientific community, but there is. And let's leave the semantics aside for a second. But it requires a massive amount of scientists to either be ignorant, incompetent, or malevolent. So I think it does. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, let's
Sorry.
address all these. Go ahead, shoot.
All right. So the question that I want to get to then is a question that I think should be asked of all conspiracy theorists, and that's, what would it take for you to admit that you're wrong? What would it take? What would it take to convince you that global warming, that global climate change is real?
Let me ask you, what
and
would it take to convince you that it wasn't true?
a massive scientific consensus that it's not.
Okay.
And I don't think that's true.
Okay.
But a follow-up.
You folks,
A follow-up to
take
that.
go on
Sorry.
a vacation and look at the Arctic area. It's not science, it's your own personal.
I'll tell you what
beliefs.
I will do.
Wait,
I will
wait,
make you a
wait.
deal.
Can I
I'll
ask
make
one
you a
more
deal. I'll
follow-up?
make you a deal.
Can I ask
In
one
20
follow-up?
years, if you come back here and we're sweltering, I will say that you're right.
Really? Come on.
You say, what does it take? 20 years.
Well, I had a follow-up to that question, and is that standard that you're requiring to admit that you're wrong in this situation the same standard you would apply to other elements of your life, other scientific facts, and if not, why not? And I guess I'll open this question up to Mr. Wilms too, in the interest of fairness, but...
And it's interesting that, you had this idea of consensus. And, and that's something that you need to understand is that that's not how science is run. And if you've watched this debate, from the beginning, it hasn't been a consensus of science, it has been a consensus of politics. And that's bothersome. That really bothers me. In 1992, when the first 1990, when the first assessment came out, scientists were complaining that the data that was presented in the UN IPC report, you want to show you the Wall Street Journal with it, okay? We're complaining and saying, look, we didn't want this in there, and they put it in there not because of the science, but because the governments wanted to show this. Okay? No, am I a conspiracy theory? No. But really what it comes down to is, if people want money, they're going to try to find a way to get it. How many people do you think are researching global warming right now and paid by grants and are willing to say, nope, no problem, stop paying me? You know what the last consensus was? This is fun. I like this. This is fun.
You want to Mr. Wilms now?
No. If we did science by consensus, just 1 second more, sorry. If we did science by consensus, 1, dinosaurs would still be made extinct by small mammals that eat the eggs. Okay? That was consensus. Okay? 2, human beings, the human race could be improved by genetic selection. That was in the 40s. Okay? Consensus. We would still have the sun circling the earth. That was the consensus. Science is not about consensus. Science is about breaking through consensus. Coming up with the truth. And the truth is not something you vote on. Go ahead, David.
In science, you have to do good experiments, and the whole conspiracy thing fell on its face. We respect science for the quality of life that it gives us. I am excited. Your transition that you're going to see in this century is completely from fossil fuels, which threaten not only the poles, but human life everywhere. We're going to see a transition to the electrical world where we're using renewable energies, whether it be the sun or wind. That is the future. Every time our economy increases, we send more money to China, they need more cars, they compete for gas, the price of gas goes up and our economy falls on its face. It's economics. It's world economics. If we put solar panels on our roof and drive our cars for 1/3 the cost that we can buy gasoline, that's a gold mine. We have resistance in politics to get anything to help photovoltaic panels and wind to move forward. Without their help, it's going to happen because the businessmen see the writing on the wall. And the sooner we do that, the less we have to have our military in the Middle East to try to protect us.
All right, so in the interest of moving things a little bit faster in this next part, I want to reiterate that there's only going to be one question from each questioner, and that each moderator or each debater will have 1 minute to respond, after which I will stand up and try and move things forward so we get through our whole line of questions. So open it up over here.
All right, well, my question is directed to you, Mr. Wilms. And from what I know in science, when in cold periods and what we know with global warming, it's colder in the winter now. With cold periods, things contract, water becomes more ice. And what we've seen through most of the slides is that throughout the summer, ice has been melting and it's been getting hotter. But what happens in the winter with the ice freezing up and just the colder periods, like what can you compensate for that?
We have the warmer conditions in the springtime actually melt more ice than is actually forming typically in the winter times because we have a change in precipitation patterns and temperature. So we're seeing a greater ice loss than we see ice gain, and that's changing the energy balance of the northern hemisphere. And so that trend alone, I mean, take all the science and you don't even really have to go through all the data and listen to the arguments. The Arctic is shrinking so much that that's going to be the biggest concern. My kids are maybe here someplace tonight, and I'm so concerned about their future. We're at a crossroads economically and for our species. If we continue on the path that we are, we're changing the chemistry and the physics of the planet, so it's going to continue to warm up, and we can see droughts like 2012 become much more common. I don't want to wait like 30 years for Mr. Haan. I want to do it as soon as possible. And the reason I want to do it as soon as we move into this area and bring costs down because of the scale of manufacturing, we have all these manufacturing plants that aren't doing anything. We could hire them to build renewable energy systems, and we could start hiring local employees to put in. And this is a gold mine. The more we do that, electric cars are going to allow us to stop a $1 billion per day energy habit that goes to countries that typically don't like us. And that will be something that will help them stabilize their areas because we're not going to be supporting regimes that are somewhat dangerous.
Mr. Haan, would you like to respond?
Yeah, just briefly. David, your faith in technology is outstanding. So why don't we just have faith that when global warming occurs, we can mitigate it through technology? Right?
Have you looked at
Why
the
don't
size
we
of the
have
Earth?
faith? It seems like your faith is in the things that you want it to have in. Now, again, I can put up the energy thing on directional fracking or directional drilling and fracking. If you really want to know where the future of cars probably will go, it's probably going to be natural gas. Because we have so much natural gas. We have enough oil available now to get us out of energy dependence by 2020. That's 7 years from now. I'll wait 7 years. Okay? We have enough natural gas, I think it's to last us a century, at least. Right? It's amazing what new technology, which I agree with David is a wonderful thing, has done to our energy dependence. Okay, we can go back over.
Yeah, my question is for Mr. Haan.
Yeah!
You said that there are many factors that could potentially contribute to global temperature, such as the sunspots or the wave patterns
Yes.
in the ocean. Is there one theory that you would support over the others, or do you believe there's some sort of combination?
You know what? I don't know. No, I'm serious. I don't know. But that's the point of science, isn't it? I mean, really, the point of science is not to stop using gas or stop using coal. The point of science is to say, what do we know and why do we not know it? Now, I have this, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I have this here. This is by James Lovelock, the father, this is the Gaia theory guy. And he said, and this is why I'm here too. The idea that the science is settled on global warming, this idea that the science is somehow irrefutable, is that one thing he says, one thing that being a scientist has taught me is that you never can be certain about anything. You never know the truth. You can only approach it and hope that you can approach it. That's what's so wonderful about having these debates. I'm a firm believer that you guys will now come and try to prove one of us wrong. That's good. Okay? But that's not the point. And the point of global warming should not be keep people from using coal. That's not science. People keep, let's get more windmills. That's not science.
Mr. Wilms, would you like to respond?
I can be certain that if I step off the edge of this stage, I will fall down. I am certain of that. Science doesn't have to tell me that. I am certain that the North Pole is disappearing. I am certain, because you saw it on Mythbusters, that CO2 stops heat from leaving the Earth. Do I want us to stop using coal? Actually, yes, because it's a threat to me, my kids, your futures. Our future, and this can be completely an economic argument, our future is to produce clean energy, which we can do today, but the word is not out there. We can produce clean energy that's going to put money into our own local economy and help the international situation greatly. Once we develop it here, increase the manufacturing, the price drops, then we're going to be in a position where we can actually start exporting it and helping other countries. Again, the United States will rise to the top leadership position in the world as being a benevolent and kind country, rather than one that has to support regimes like Saudi Arabia, whose terrorists came after us because we're supporting things that aren't good in their country. So this gets to be an ethical issue, a political issue, a scientific issue, and a personal issue. And I encourage all of you to learn as much as you can about this, and don't just listen to Mr. Haan and myself. Investigate it on your own. And if you want a good career path to choose, science, technology, engineering, math, and world economics. That'll help you develop a pathway that's going to be in amazing demand in a very short period of time.
You said you're really big into electric cars, and as over Priuses came out was 10 years ago, we've come to realize that those batteries are the same thing that are in our phone. And as you realize when you plug in your phone and you've had it for a year, you realize that a full life of battery is not the same as it was from when you first got it. So Priuses, they don't hold as much battery and electricity as they do over time. So what's different about fully electric cars that they won't run out of juice like Priuses will?
Electricity can be stored in batteries. And I talked to somebody who bought one of the very first Honda Insights. And they just replaced the battery this last summer, 200,000 miles on it. Before I bought my Prius, I did a lot of research because I didn't want it to be harmful to the environment. It's not, it's 100% recyclable. And I also wanted to not spend a lot of money. I am saving so much money by driving the Prius because it's fuel efficient that it's putting cash in my pocket. And the neat thing is that this whole energy question is giving us an opportunity to grow new businesses. Tesla first put out the sports car. I drove in one, amazing. The only problem, doesn't sound like a hot rod. Incredible acceleration. His next car is the S version of the Tesla. That car is very fast, 250-mile range. He's putting He's putting gas stations up, charging stations. It can charge with the new technology in 40 minutes, and you can drive all over the country shortly. The gas stations are going to have photovoltaic panels on the roof so they can help supply the energy to the cars. There's no water pollution. And if I could have one slide up here, I have one last slide in answer to fracking, which is what Mr. Haan is so excited about, and all the standard energy companies are so excited about because it allows them to, once again, control your energy. If we look at fracking, it's causing lots of leakage. The EPA estimated that the leaking of methane from an area where you shatter the ground, rock, the gas leaks out, you capture it, and then you sell it. It's a great thing, but it also bubbles up through water tables and everything else. And so, the NOAA did some air samples in Colorado and found out that the methane levels in fracking areas is twice as high as predicted. Methane is 25 times more powerful as a greenhouse gas, so this is not a good path to go down. And it also is a fossil fuel which creates carbon dioxide. And we can put solar thermal panels on the roof like we have here at Stevenson. We can put green roofs on the rooftops at Stevenson like Mr. Carmichael did, which slows our loss of energy. We can put photovoltaic panels on across this golf course-sized roof. And we can almost provide Stevenson with the energy it needs. During the daytime when industry is operating, the sun, get this, the sun shines during the day. Okay, you can make electricity from the sun.
Yeah, you know,
electric cars and not fracking, that'd be cool.
Electric cars are not new, and that's one of the things that you got to understand is electric cars have been around for only since the 1900s.
Who killed the electric car?
Thomas Edison had, that's a good point, David. Who killed the electric car? Thomas Edison had his electric car. What killed the electric car? Piece of cake. Cheap gas. Okay? And that's the question. Okay? Now, if right now, with all of our oil reserves, Mr. Will says we're running out. That's not what the Department of Energy says. The Department of Energy says we are on the cusp of a revolution of gas, oil, natural gas. Right? That's the reality. Now, here's something interesting about volts. Okay? And actually, most of the battery-run cars, to make the energy in the battery efficient, you need lithium. Oil, natural gas, is everywhere. Lithium comes from Bolivia. We want to take it, and we want to take a situation where we have natural gas and oil everywhere in this country. We're going to be a producer, an exporter, largest producer by 2017, and an exporter by 2020, and trade all of that for dependence on Bolivia.
Okay, the neat thing about science. Can I just say one thing about lithium? There are new batteries on the horizon. We don't need lithium like he thinks. That's cool. It's called science.
Hi, I have a question for you, Mr.
Oh, sure. I do not get money from oil companies.
Oh.
Oh, that's not your question. Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. In your presentation, you were stating that the idea of global warming was essentially created to support the policy agenda.
Yes. And well, you know what? Is there something happening with the climate? We don't know yet. It's a fairly new science. Actually, it's a very politicized science, though, from the start, and
Yes.
that's problematic to me.
So,
But go ahead.
anyways, but you also are stating that going into green technologies would not be as beneficial for the economy as Mr. Wilms suggested.
Absolutely not.
So then,
Very expensive.
I guess, what do you think would be these policymakers' motivation to try to make global warming as prevalent in the world as it is? Why, if it's not good for the economy, if there's nothing wrong with the way the world as it is now, why would they want to change it so bad?
What's interesting is who's driving it, really, and that's what you're asking is who's driving this if there's a thing. I think the thing that really is driving it, and at the bottom line, is the idea of carbon tax. Europe, the EU, has done a trading system, huge amounts of fraud, by the way. Tried to do, took the idea of this global warming, took the idea of this Kyoto Protocol, and then made it into a tax to be paid to the EU. You've got government saying, hey, wait a minute, we can support this, say there's a problem, and we know how just to fix it. We'll take tax from poor people for gasoline and carbon. Okay? Does that make sense? We'll take taxes from, so do I think it's a conspiracy? No, I think it's an opportunity. If I was a government, no problem. Okay? Let's make it a scare, global warming, and we'll get a bunch of scientists around, pay them very well, and then we'll have, I mean, think about if they did $1 a gallon tax on your car, on every gallon of gas. How much money would that be for the government?
Thank you, Mr. Haan.
But is this government money going into government paychecks? So then how are they really?
Well, they're getting more revenue.
Vice, can I answer that for a minute? So, you're touching on a really good question. We're dealing with the energy industry in the United States is $1 trillion a year industry. It costs $10 million to become a U.S. senator. By the time you get all these senators' campaigns paid for, they're beholden to a lot of people. You know that the Republicans and the Democrats have broken down in the U.S. Senate. Congress is in shambles. There's no cooperation. They are not interested in doing anything except maintaining their seats by supporting the policies of their governments. You guys are the biggest ones to deal with this issue. The more there is the more confusion there is on the part of the American public, the less it's ever going to happen. And that allows the $1 trillion a year business to continue. The ice is melting everywhere. You guys were in January in warm, and you guys can see our new economy move away from centralized energy to distributed energy, so you put the money for your sunshine in your pockets. It's a new concept that we can sell.
David, we try. It doesn't work.
All right. Thank you both for your answers throughout this entire evening. If I could get this. Oh, there we go.
All right, well, let's have a big round of applause for our two debaters tonight.
If you'd like to discuss this issue further, please come to the next meeting of Truth Seekers, which is next Wednesday after school until 4:45 in room 2900. Additionally, again, if you'd like to read any further about this issue, both Mr. Haan and Mr. Wilms have provided information that will be on the Truth Seekers website.
Also, don't forget about the posters that we've got all around the auditorium and their QR codes. Those have links to the Truth Seekers website where you can get, as the question was earlier, both of their PowerPoints and all that information that they've been presenting. Or you can ask Mr. Royce at his email address nroyce@d125.org.
On behalf of the Truth Seekers Club, we thank you again for coming this evening. We believe that much can be gained from investigating controversial subjects. We hope you heard both sides of the argument in a mutually respectful setting and enjoyed your time here. Drive safely and have a good night.